Hey everyone, welcome back to the Suburban Homesteader. My name is Megan and today's going to be a little bit different. So a few people have asked me how I keep chickens in the suburbs, what kind of chickens I have, what's my setup like. So I thought I'd give you a bit of a tour. First off, I need to do a spider check. If you live in Australia, you know exactly what I mean. We get a lot of redbacks, white-tip spiders, etc. here. So I accidentally left my shoes out and I might like to make sure that they're okay. So you do a little stomp and a little whack and see if anything comes out. Looks good. Alright. These are good. It's so easy to check because I can stomp on them super easy. Let's go. Quick little overview of what it looks like from the back deck. So our block is a weird shape. That point over there where the two fences meet with the boundaries, that's the furthest point away from our door, and it's also the slope of the blocks. It's a slight slope, but there's the point of where it's the highest peak. So we used to get a lot of, well, we still do. We get a lot of water runoff from the next door neighbor's shed, and we used to get a lot of pooling around here. But since having the chickens and the way we've mulched it and things like that, it's helped minimize, sink the water and minimize its spread down here. Which, to be honest, with the garden bed being here, if anything runoff does occur, it might help with fertilizing the grass and the veggie beds because, the chickens poo. But here's a bit of an overview. So, furthest point there from the door. And then the way I've got it, it's in a bit of an arrowhead shape. So, it starts over here, just beyond where the compost bins are. And it goes to where you see the little green structure here. That's our omelette chicken coop. And then it goes back this way. And just where that bench is, next to our citrus. So it's a bit of an arrowhead. We use some of the flexible netting from Omelette, because we got our coop from Omelette. We got the Omelette igloo coop, which has since been upgraded. So it has some really pretty cool features. But we use a flexible netting. So it's only, I think, about 1.2 meters high. And, when you look at the pictures online, they had all these guy ropes going everywhere to keep it nice and stable. We don't do that. But I had secured it on the wooden fence on one end. And then it's just like spikes in the ground where you see every single post, all the way through to the other end of the arrow over here, the tip of the arrow over here. And we've got two gates. One, easier access. So the first one is just here where our clothesline is. That's where, if we've got kitchen scraps, things like that, that's where I tend to go the easiest route. So when you look at the permaculture principles, in relation to how everything's integrated, and the idea for me is work smarter and not harder. So even though it's it's not just a slight convenience, but yeah, so here's where we go when we do the chicken scraps, kitchen scraps for the chooks. So we just easily chuck it over the fence. But if we need to get in there for whatever reason, we tend to go this route for when we're filling up the chicken's feed, because our food is in the other inside or in our she shed, which is the closest shed to the house. And that's the access we go to fill up their water and fill up, their chicken feed. If we've got anything else, extra treats, which we tend to access that point. The other gate, which is up here, so you walk through our little garden through the archway. And there's another gate over here. That's also pretty good. If I have any garden scraps, I can just chuck it over at any point. But if I want to do something particular, I can access that gate. I also access that gate when I'm cleaning out the chicken coop and the nesting roosting areas. So I tend to go through that gate to do that. So it's just easier. We tend to put all our chickens' bedding and things like that straight in the compost. Here. So it's just a matter of making it the most easiest route possible. Our compost bin. We initially did have our compost bins in the chicken run. It did make it a little bit harder, or not harder, just a little bit inconvenient when you had some kitchen scraps that you wanted to put in the compost rather than give to the chickens. You had to go through, open the gate and get into there. And then, chickens used to love jumping into it for worms, etc. But we ended up moving it out here. One, because it's a slightly easier access. We're more likely to be able to do it and it's less inconvenient, but also wanted to chuck in a few more fruit trees. So we've got a few fruit trees and the 2 big callistemons here. These 2 big callistemons has been there as long as I can remember. They're huge. They put on some really bright, beautiful red flowers, like a bottle brush. I've got a dwarf mango here, which I put in about, I think, early last year. And then I've got a mandarin here, so a citrus. On this side, I've got an avocado that I've been given, and I'm growing. I don't know what the variety is, but we're trying it out. Got another dwarf mango. So this one's a Florigan, that one's a dwarf Allison red. And then I've got 2 double grafted citrus. The idea is, you know, one, it provides shade and somewhere to hide for the chickens. But also, you know, it's the chicken poo, like, it just provides great fertilizer. So it's just an easy way, one, to utilize the unused space. You know, I can put all my trees in there. But, you know, when they're scratching, pooping, it's fertilizing, aerating it. I do put mesh down to stop them from scratching the roots too much. But it just provides great shade. I do eventually have ideas of making the netting a bit more fixed or permanent and growing like some sort of vines, maybe a grapevine or a passion fruit vine or something like that along it, just to maximize the vertical space. But let's go down. I want to give you an inside tour of the chicken run now, and I'll introduce you to the girls. All right, so we're going to walk through our garden beds, which are looking fantastic. So this is one of the first gates. It's super easy. I can do it one-handed, which makes it really good when I've got something in my other hand. So it just clips on here. And there's another one down there. Now, in regards to our chickens, we don't have too many problems with them getting over our net. That's probably one of the biggest things a lot of people ask about. Look, chickens do fly. To minimize that is that we trim one of their wings. So the idea is, you know, if they've got both wings full, they can easily fly. When you trim one, when they do go to do that, they're a bit lopsided. And that's the idea around it. So we do tend to try and keep up with the trimming on one side. Doesn't hurt the chickens if you do it right. A lot of resources online if you wanted to see how you go with it. These are our chooks, minus one, Chikira. Chikira's broody at the moment, so she's in broody jail. So this is Meryl. She's a light Sussex. I do have heritage breed chickens, except Chikira, who is a Arakuna cross. But we have Meryl, who's the oldest and the crankiest. She's Meryl Streep. She's one of the OG chickens. And then we've also got Raygun, who's a black Australorp, so an Aussie breed. And then we've also got Charolander, who is a Leghorn. Now, the reason why I chose heritage breed chickens, the commercial ones, you know, they breed them to pump out eggs, you know, and they should last for a very short lifespan, so only a few years. They lay a lot quicker, so if you're looking at something that to get eggs straight away, they're probably the best bet. They lay a lot sooner, but probably about, I think, 3 months, whereas these ones are about more closer to 7 months. But they have a lot longer lifespan. They're a lot healthier. They have less health issues because the commercial breeds like the Isa Browns are bred to produce more eggs a lot quicker in a short amount of time. They tend to have some health issues like prolapses and stuff. And from what I've heard, sometimes they're a bit bossy, although Meryl's probably our bossiest one ever, and she's very vocal right now. So yeah, so they're the ones that we've got. I chose heritage breed, dual purpose. You know, if we did want to eventually, we could, you know, egg and meat, but you know, at the moment we're just going to be using them for eggs. We don't have no intention of harvesting our chickens, but I did pick the heritage breeds for that reason. So one big thing that you want to be mindful of with chickens, you know, fantastic thing to have, great for kids, great for the backyard. I'd highly recommend everyone looking into chickens. They're so easy to keep. But you do want to be mindful of council regulations. So we're in the suburbs here. Might be a bit different if you live out in the country, or if you have, you know, live on acreage and things like that. You might not have as many restrictions. But here in the suburbs, you know, you have to go through council regs. So our council regulations is that you only can have, I think it's a max 8 chickens. With the space that we have, it's about 64 square meters. And we've got 4 chickens. So it's about, 16 square meters each. From the RSPCA free range, I think it's like 1 to 2 square meters, or maybe up to 3 square meters. So our chickens have a lot more space than what they classify as free range. But we could definitely put more on here if we wanted to. We've got 4. Like I said, Chikira is our Aracuna cross. She's in broody jail, and I don't think I want any more than 4. So I have no intentions of having 8. Now our omelette coop can definitely hold more than 4. The newer one now can hold up to way more. I think it's like 10, 15 chickens or something. But I guess that depends on the breeds as well. Like our Merrill, our light Sussex, is our biggest one, our biggest chook, a lot heavier compared to, these girls down here. And our Chikira, which is our Aracuna cross, she's a lot lighter than Merrill as well. So I guess it depends on what breed of chickens you have. They also say that you can't have a rooster, and for very good reasons. You live in the suburbs, you live, and with all the developments now where everyone's in each other's pockets, you don't want to be hearing roosters. They're too loud. A lot of people don't manage. Not to say that people don't have them. People definitely have them around here. You can definitely hear them every so often, and I've seen them sometimes in people's yards. But you're not allowed to have roosters here. And for only 4 chooks, you don't need a rooster. It's only when you have a bigger flock do you need one to help maybe manage the flock, but help with predators and stuff. But really here, we're not supposed to have one. The other thing as well is where you can have it located on your property. So some councils, they say that you can only have it a certain distance away from dwellings, and that's the same with ours. So where we've got our chicken coop is away from livable dwellings, so that part there is fine. Now, in regards to predators, like I said, we do have I think this is about 1.6 meters. I reckon that collarbone will be the same. So it's a very shortish fence compared to what you can have. You'd think that we'd have more predators, and we've actually had not too many issues. The main predators, like we get a lot of stray cats around, well, stray and maybe non-stray cats, and you do see them roaming. They go through the garden, they walk along the fences and stuff. And I thought that would be an issue. But they actually haven't been. So, the chooks aren't too worried. I'd imagine someone like, Merrill, she can defend herself. So I haven't had too many issues with the cats. Kites and eagles and stuff, I would imagine there'll be more if you had baby chicks. So we bought some fertilized eggs and we tried growing some out because one of our chickens, who has now recently, passed, she went super broody and everything that I've tried didn't work. So we hatched some out, and Jakira is a result of that. So when they're little, I kept them separated in actually what I use for my garden hoop for my brassicas, and that worked really well. We've had one issue with a fox, which was very surprising. We had a fox visit us last year, and unfortunately our one eye egg weaner, she lost vision in her one eye. That was the one that was Chikira's mum. She somehow jumped the fence. We might have been needing to trim her wing, and I remember chucking her back over, and then sometime between late afternoon and that night she must have got back over again, and she must have nested in our garden beds, and a fox just happened to come through and take her. And it was so surprising. The way it got through initially was underneath our gate. There's a little bit of a gap there, and then when we saw on our cameras what happened, we boarded that up, and then the fox visited us every night for like a couple of weeks, and it literally jumped this fence. It would jump our flexible netting as well and scour the yard, and it would jump back over there when it was finished. So thankfully we haven't had it around for a while, but the main thing was just making sure that our chickens are locked up tight at night. So I'll give you a bit of a tour of what the omelette igloo looks like. So this is an omelette igloo. I did a lot of research, probably more than I did a lot of research before getting our chickens. And I was so undecided for so long as to what coop I wanted. I was looking at some of the ones that you get through Bunnings and other places like is it Furwood? I don't even know what the wood is, but it's so dodgy and cheap. And a lot of the people that I've seen with reviews, they break down within 12 months, unless they make changes to them themselves. And where we are, western suburbs, it gets super hot, 45 plus degree heats. And I thought maybe a stainless steel one. Some of them looked really good. It was like a chook tractor. But I just sort of might get a bit too hot. With some of the wooden ones too, it becomes an issue when you have like mite issues or infestations. And I came across the omelette igloo. Now this is probably a little bit more pricey than some of the ones that you probably see online. But it's been fantastic. So it's like I can't remember, it's some sort of plastic, and it's insulated. It has ventilation. It's super easy to clean out because it is the plastic. This is what it looks like on the inside. Now, we did have an auto door but broke. I think it was just super old or something issue with the battery, so we need to fix that. Lately we've been just having to close it and open it manually, but this is what it looks like, the original igloo coop. So you have the nesting area. You can access it through this door over here, which we go through over this little flexible netting, so we actually don't have to enter the run to get the eggs. The girls have done a good job, laid some eggs. I can close off the nesting area if I need to. The roosting area, so the only downside to this, and you can easily pull out the tray to, you know, refresh and clean, but it's super easy to clean. You can spray it, you can scrub it a lot better than some of the other ones that I've seen. The only downside is, you know, this is the materials that you put for the underneath the roosting area where the droppings go. I would love it for it to be deeper. You know, I've seen a lot of coops, and especially a lot of like, I was also looking at building our own coop, but it was just gonna take too much time, money and effort, and I had a 6-month-old, and wood costs were just super extreme, you know, during peak COVID. But yeah, I just feel like a deeper system here would be a lot better. You wouldn't have to change it as frequently. You probably change it every 2-3 weeks. I'll come and check on it every so often to see what it looks like. And then what I do, I just chuck that one into the compost, and then I put the nesting area shavings into here. I would use wood shavings, and then I refresh the wood shavings in the nesting area. I've got some wormwood here that I put in there as well for some pest deterrents like mosquitoes and stuff. And I'm also growing some lavender, rosemary along here that I like to put in there as well for, you know, stress relief, flies, mosquitoes, stuff like that. Yeah, that's probably the only comment I have about this part. Like, I feel like it could be deeper, might make it a bit easier, but others might have different opinions on that. I have seen people do some hacks where they take out the tray and they allow the ventilation underneath. Cheryl Lander's wondering what we're doing. She's like, oh, eggs. But then there's a few other different hacks. I'd love to put a camera in here to see what they're doing, and also gives me an idea of like, are they all in bed? Omelette also have a smart auto door now, so you can actually control everything via an app. Normally it's just run via battery, and it just uses sunlight, or you can time it, put a timer on it, but it just uses the light as to when it opens and closes. Now, another thing as well, so we got the 2-meter run here, and then we also got wheels and handles. Now, I had in my head that, you know, like you've seen some of the homesteading channels, that I'll be moving it every day. Like, I was going to have a look at moving this chook tractor, you know, down the yard every day or every whatever along, and just have it continually moving. Well, it didn't work out like that. One, with the 2-meter run and the skirtings that it has, so things can't dig into it, it just wasn't movable. Like, it needed 2 people. It was very awkward having the handles, the wheels, and the 2-meter run. I definitely couldn't do it by myself. And then the longer we left it there, the more the grass grew up the skirting of it, and it just made it impossible to move. So we ended up leaving it here under the shade. It's probably the perfect space in regards to placement, shade. The callispan provides great shade during summer. And yeah, so it's just become a permanent fixture. Now, I'm looking at maybe removing that 2-meter run, because it's quite short. You know, if any time that we needed to get in, like when we first got the chickens, we had to train them up the ladder, and I'll show you what it looks like inside. But we had to train them up the ladders, and if anyone laid eggs underneath the run initially when they were first starting to learn how to lay, we had to get in there. So this is what it looks like. So it's quite, look, I'm 1.6 and this is quite short, so you're having to really crawl into here. You got 2 doors that you could use. You can also put an auto door here as well. But you know, if we needed to get in the right at the back there, you had to go through here. Now, Omelette, with the recent design changes with the more recent coop, you actually have access points on the sides and underneath there. That would be really good. Like, I think that would be really helpful, but you can't do that with this one. So we're actually looking at maybe, I'm undecided, but maybe removing this run, just so easier access if we need to get in. And it means that, like, you know, they've got a little walkway here that we use and we go around, but it'll just free up the space a bit more, I feel. But I'm undecided. Like, I do have material over the chicken run, so it's blacked out on this side with the green, and then you got the clear, so they still get sunlight but protected by rain. Obviously the trees protect them with the rain too, but you know, it just provides that little bit of extra protection. Now when we first got this coop, we got the original omelette eggloo feeders and waterers. They were the ones that just clipped to the sides, and it was just an open area for the water for the feed. And we were finding that we're getting a lot of like birds coming in, feeding on and drinking. One issue that I haven't seen that I've heard people can potentially have is like mice issues. And having open feed will definitely like entice them. It's one of the reasons why if we give them kitchen scraps, if they haven't eaten them by a certain time, we then chuck it in the compost because we don't like leaving it out. And I just found like it was just inviting a lot of the wild birds. That in itself is a problem because it brings out you know, other issues with pests and diseases like mites and other, you know, coryza and everything like that sometimes the chicks can get. Mara wants involved. What are you doing? So we soon hoyed them, and then we went to another one through Dinah Chook that hooks. I might even try and grab it. It's literally a 4 litre. It literally hooked to here, and it was a long vertical PVC pipe almost. And the feeder part had just an open end that had a cover over it, so like the rain couldn't get in, but the chickens couldn't get into it. And then the water was very similar, but then it had like these little cups at the bottom. Now look, they were great initially. We still found though that the birds and the wild birds were still getting into the feed. They were somehow sitting on top of it and going in, or they were accessing it somehow. And we found that we're just going through way too much feed. The wild birds weren't, I couldn't remember seeing any wild birds getting into that, but the cups soon got super filthy. They got super dirty, and you know, it was just, I was constantly cleaning them out, and even then it was still an issue. So it was an improvement from the original feeders and waterers, but still it just still wasn't working great. So then we went to these two options. So what the birds are drinking from is our new watering system that we've had for a few months now, again from Dinah Chook. It's a 20 litre drum, so we don't have to fill it up anywhere near as much. The other thing I found with the previous Dinah Chook system is that it kept leaking, so we're losing water. This is a 20 litre drum that's on nipples now, so the chickens just tap the nipple and they get water from it. I found that wild birds can access that. Keeps it all clean, so you don't have to worry about the cups and things like that getting filthy. So less cleaning, a bit more hygienic. We did buy the drum stand for it, but we did have to put it on some cinder blocks. And then the other game changer was this grandpa feeder that I picked up from our local supply place where I got Ray Garner and Cheryl Lander. They had these grandpa feeders, and the idea is it can pretty much take half a bag of feed, so about 9 kilos of feed, maybe a bit more. And the chickens have to stand on this to then open the lid. And this has been a game changer. It did take a little while to train them, or actually both systems to be honest, because they've never used this nipple system before. But it did take a little while because obviously it's metal, it does clamber down. So there is a training thing that you can do then, and that comes with the manual on how to train them to this system. And eventually, you know, they got it and it went really well. Obviously it's metal, so you don't have to worry about, you know, mice, rats, other local birds and stuff, so they can't get into it. And the chickens are great with it now. And my husband, it was funny, my husband did mention that, you know, because obviously it takes a certain weight for a bird to open the lid. It's a step system. And he reckons he came across some wild birds working together. There was like a bunch of them sitting on that little pedal feeding. I haven't seen it, but it would be super funny if the local birds have, like, you know, collaborated to then be able to get the feed. But I haven't seen it, but look, it doesn't mean that it might not happen. But you know, one single bird couldn't get into it because it just wouldn't weigh enough. So but so far so good with these two watering and feeding systems. And something like this, I don't know if there's other better systems that other people are using, you know, for their chickens watering and feeding. But you know, if you've got DIY options, if you've got other different options, let me know in the comments below what you're using. and what you have found to be a game changer. So far, these are it, but doesn't mean there can't be improvements. I know Dynachook with their, Omelette. I've recently seen that Omelette have also improved their feeding systems, and it's even like operated like with the app too. You know, it tells you when the feed is getting low, which would be a cool function. But you know, we probably fill this up. Well, it's a 20 litre drum. It takes a long time for them to go through it. The feed we probably fill up every maybe 2 weeks, maybe a bit longer, give or take. But we obviously have to come out and check. For people to work smarter, not harder, having a system like the new Omelette one, you know, where you can use an app to see whereabouts they are in the feed, might be helpful, especially if you're like into your tech. But I've seen they've had an updated with their feeding system, so I actually haven't tried it. I don't know what it's like. So if you have tried it, let me know as to how you found it. Another thing I give the chickens, which I give them 24/7 access to, is shell grit. So that's one thing that I'll have to be mindful of if I do end up removing this mesh, the run is where I'm going to hook it up to. I might need to build a little system somewhere over here where I can hook it up and put the waters and the feeders under that. But at the moment I've had it hooked up. It's literally just a hook that I've got from IKEA or Bunnings. And I've just used a container, a plastic container, and I just fill the shell grit up there, and I just give them access 24/7, so they can just come and get it when they need to. Helps with calcium. You know, I put some grind up eggshells in there too, but you know, because chickens don't have teeth, they need it to help with the digestion. So having access to 24/7 is, you know, is quite crucial, and that's how I give it to them. Like I mentioned, we do get really hot summers, really humid. The trees provide great shade. It's definitely a lot cooler under here than in the direct sun. But we've also implemented a misting system. This is a Holman brand. We've got a hose that runs all the way along to our watering tank, our water tanks down the back here, and we've got a pump. So I do have a bit of an app system that I can use to monitor it and run it, but we've just got it running up. We just have it running up the fence here and then all the way along, and it just provides a bit of a mist. I can control how much they get. And it works really well, so it just helps cool everything down. So if you live in an area where I do, where it gets really hot and humid, and you're really, you know, concerned about your chickens, watering system helps a lot. Now, little enrichment things that I've done for the chickens. Obviously, they've got fruit trees. They can scratch around looking for bugs. I give them extra things like mealworms, yogurt with oats, things like that. So feeding enrichments. But then they also have other ones too. So I've put some mirrors in. I've seen chickens can like them. I haven't seen my chickens like them though. But we've got this hanging basket that we've got here. I just hook it up to the tree, and I'll just use some, you know, cloth twine. And it just hangs. And then I chuck some like lettuces or anything that I've got from the garden. If I've purchased anything from the shops that have been on sale, I'll chuck it in there and the chickens can jump up and reach it. Obviously, the heavier something is, the more it weighs down, so they can access it a bit more. But that hanging basket's really cool. It just gives them something to do, something a bit of fun to access as well. I did have this little stake going across here as well, so if they wanted to sit on it and stuff, they could. It did fall down. I can't remember why, but I don't think I really saw them using it anyway. Over here, I've also got some crates and another stake going across them. I have seen the chickens jump up onto these crates and stand on the stake. You know, something else to do for them as well. Now, I have tried growing rock melon and pumpkin, and I don't know if it's the chickens, but I have a feeling they're the ones pecking the leaves of this rock melon. I've put mesh down so they can't scratch it, but obviously they're having a field day on the leaves itself. I was hoping they would leave it alone and it can grow up here and look great in the chicken run, but it's not working. Now, what we feed our chickens, so our chickens are, you know, technically free range. They have 16 square meters between them. So they have a lot of space compared to, you know, what the standard is supposed to be for free range. So they have a lot of space to dig around. We use wood chip for our flooring, and obviously there's dirt underneath. It's probably due for another refresh of hardwood chip, but that's what we use for our flooring here in the chook run. But they can scratch around. you know, looking for bugs and things like that. We also, like I said, with our grandpa feeders, they have access to that. They have access to that, which is like a free range mix, grain mix. So they can scratch around. They get access to that grandpa feeder. And then we also give them kitchen scraps, garden scraps, mealworms. I give them dried up mealworms. I might give them like a yogurt with like an oats in them and stuff like that too. So that's what they're really getting. You can get all different kinds of fancy things for feeding and supplements. But you can also make your own as well. So, but that's what we're doing and giving our chickens. And we're really getting really great eggs from our chickens. They're really healthy, really happy. And that's the main thing you want. Otherwise, you know, you end up with issues with, you know, pests, diseases, things like that. So things that you don't want. When a chicken goes broody, it becomes a big issue too, because obviously they're not leaving the nesting area, and they become issues with, you know, getting sick, like coryza. You know, they can also get mites because they're more susceptible. Now, some of the issues that can come up with, you know, having an open run like this is, you know, wild birds bring in a lot. So you got I can never pronounce it, coccidiosis. You got coryza, which is a respiratory issue, and mites. So mites can occur as well. The main time we've had mites is when one of our chooks went broody. And we just couldn't break the broodiness. We go through a certain thing that we isolate them for a few days. Obviously give them fresh food and water, but we do isolate them and then reintroduce them at night time. So there's some of the common issues that can potentially happen. We've had no issues with things like being egg bound and other things like that, which can potentially be an issue. So you definitely want to do some research in regards to, you know, chicken's health and chicken issues that can occur, and that what you might need to manage. So I mentioned that we have so we do have wood shavings in for our nesting and roosting area, but for the actual chicken run we use wood chip, so mulch, so a hardwood hard chip mulch. We've probably like I said, it's 64 square meters, and we like to put a thick layer down, and we've probably done it twice so far, and we've probably had the chickens probably 4 on years actually. So Merrill before, the other's not quite that old. So we've had them for 4 years, and we've probably replaced it twice, or you know, replenished it twice, where we just get a huge amount dropped off, and then we just have to wheelbarrow it in. And so we use wood chip. Obviously there's dirt underneath that they can get through, but it doesn't really get muddy as long as you keep the wood chip up. Helps with the smell, helps with keeping things, you know, the moisture levels down in regards to like water pooling, and it helps with like getting the water down and sinking it. Like I said, with the omelette flexible netting, we don't use the guy ropes, so you are going to get a bit of, you know, bending and bowing. So it's just a matter of pulling it out and repositioning it to try and straighten it up. But that we're not worried about that. I don't really want guy ropes everywhere and tripping over them. I will admit though, the only downside of having this flexible netting is that when chickens scratch, you know, you get a big pile up here on the outside, and there's obviously becomes a difference in flooring. So obviously here's a lot deeper than over here. So you do get like a wood chip piling on the edge on the outside. And it will affect, you know, how bumpy the ground is, because you can see here, like it was level-ish, and you know, they've scratched and things. A lot of wood chips has maybe scratched this way, some have gone over this way, and then the grass has grown over the top, and it just does make it a bit bumpy and lumpy. So when we do have a look at maybe replacing the netting to a bit more permanent fixture, I might have, you know, something down the bottom, whether it's a sleeper, paver, whatever it is, just as a bit of a flooring barrier to keep the wood chip in rather than it getting out of the chicken run. That's probably the only downside really that I've had with it. Otherwise we've had it up for 4 years and we've had no problems with it, and we rarely have chickens jumping over it. That was one of the big things a lot of people say, oh, they'll jump over. Look, it happens, but not rare, like not often. And it's quite easy to maintain and manage this flexible netting. So overall, you know, if you're on the fence of getting chickens, I would highly recommend looking into it. You know, the kids love coming out, picking grass, picking lettuce, picking kale. I literally grow things for chickens, like just for chickens. in the veggie bed. So like kale, rainbow chard, things like that. I grow extra lettuces and spinaches and stuff, you know, because the kids love picking them. It also means I don't have to put as much feed into, you know, the mixed grain, the premium grain that we give them. It's like a mixed grain, so they can easily pull things out of the chicken, the veggie beds, and give them to the chickens. So the kids love it. The kids love coming in, collecting the eggs, feeding the chickens the little treats, giving them a pat, giving them a pickup. You know, so it's fun for the whole family. You know, and the bonus that you get out of it is, you know, fresh, free-range chicken eggs. So we actually haven't purchased eggs for, you know, 4 years. You know, so, and we probably get, with our chickens, we get about 2 to 4 eggs a day. On the average is 3 to 4, but anywhere from 2 to 4, especially if they go broody. That's another thing with broodiness. It tends to set the other ones off too. It's like a clock. But yeah, so usually you'll have little downtimes, but you know, usually 2 to 4 eggs is what we're getting a day. So, and that's plenty for my family. We end up giving a lot out to friends and family, just because they just produce so much more than what we need. And that was the idea. You know, we probably only really needed 2 to, you know, supply our family, but we got, you know, 3 to 4 is a good number, especially if you get any illnesses and stuff like that in the flock. But you know, 3 to 4 is a good number for a, you know, 4+ size family, or if you wanted to give extra to the community. So I'll definitely recommend getting some chickens if you're on the fence. Let me know in the comments down below what kind of setup you have. If you got something similar, do you have them completely enclosed? We just probably wouldn't be able to do that here. Look, we probably could if we had more infrastructure, but I love these callistemon trees, and I wouldn't want to net them or make it look ugly having things like attaching to them to try and close it. So I quite like having the openness of our chicken run. But you know, Omelette do walk-in chicken runs. A lot of people build chicken runs. Some people have them purely free range. So let me know in the comments below what kind of setup you have. Do you also live in the suburbs? Have you had any issues keeping chickens where you are? Yeah, that's a bit of an overview of what we have here in the Suburban Homesteader. But like I said, like this video. So, you know, share it if you have other friends that are interested in chickens and are on the fence. And you like and subscribe our channel for more updated videos. You get notifications about new videos coming out. If you have any other ideas of other videos that you would like to see on the Suburban Homesteader, let me know. We also have an Instagram page of the Suburban Homesteader AUS, where we put a bit more daily updates and progress. So head over to there and follow us there too. And thanks for watching.